And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today, Christmas Day, December 25th, 2012. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, Joe Hagmann. And, folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news analysis and, of course, information you need to know this Christmas night. And not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse in the studio. And Joe is barely stirring. Joe, welcome.
Glad to be here.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Folks, let me tell you something. Joe is not a happy camper to be here.
I'm so tired. My brain is filled with ham, and I'm ready for a nap.
That's special.
Tried to take a nap before the show, could not do it, and I am ready to take one on air. I mean,
what is wrong with these young
you guys
children?
could catch me snoring while he's talking away. So.
Perhaps. Well, I'm going to try not to bore you, folks.
Merry Christmas to all of you out there.
Absolutely.
I hope your Christmas was as wonderful as ours was and is, and we still have Christmases coming up as family members have different schedules and times. And
you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know how it is. When people come in from out of town, of course, you have schedule. It's like forever. So anyway, folks, you can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. You can watch us as well. Normally, we're broadcasting high definition on the Christians United Broadcasting Network, and we're also simulcast on a couple of AM stations. But in the interim, I just want to, both Joe and I want to wish everyone just a tremendous day. I hope everyone had a great day with their families today. I hope you had the opportunity to be with a person or the people that you love, the family, members that you love, and as we did, and even if it's a parakeet or a dog, for crying out loud, it's just share with someone, because you know what, I told my wife this morning, I said, I'm just not sure if we're going to see another Christmas in the same fashion as we have this Christmas, and she just looked at me funny, like, well, it's so hard to get your brain around this kind of thing. Of course, if you've noticed on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, this past weekend, I did catch up with, I did have a meeting with my source from the Department of Homeland Security, and I've noticed that many people on the internet are...
Give me a name or you're a liar.
Oh, yeah. Or, here he is, listening to the voices in his head again. And, it's okay. But yet the very same people will turn around and say, well, those things are happening, and believe, you should believe, just take my word for it. I don't know what to do anymore. I guess it really doesn't matter. I feel like Steve, Yeah, you go ahead and get your binky. Well, I think I saved it from your younger days.
Oh, goodness. No, I just got to wake up here. But,
look, the information is rather startling, Joe.
But the important thing is the one forum we were reading where this was posted at, they posted your article, said you were basically making stuff up. Then later on down the post has a similar information that things are going to be just as bad and it's going to happen like this. Basically the same words and from same information saying it's coming just the same way, same time. Well, but you're a liar. So
it's look.
But we can't dwell on what other people think of us. Otherwise, we would be pretty much curled up in a corner in the room right now, crying. So,
that's where you got
where the majority comes in. Because if we think about the majority, we have so many. We're so blessed to have so many people that listen and promote the show, pray for us, and do so much for us that it drowns out the very few who are critical and sometimes there is a need to be critical, but when there is nothing to be critical of, I guess, it gets a little old.
Yeah, you're right. What do you think? I mean, Joe, you were not with me when I had this meeting, and you did not know about it beforehand. I didn't know it was deliberate. You didn't really.
No, I don't know when you talk to this guy. I don't know what you say to him. I know what you say to your one guy.
All right.
Because we talk together sometimes. But this guy, no, I haven't talked to them.
So, I mean, I guess my question to you, having read or skimmed over the information.
I do know he's a real person because I've heard him briefly on a phone call before, but never interacted.
So, well, yeah. So
I can vouch for that.
Well, I mean, and ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had the opportunity to read this, it's all there in two parts on HomelandSecurityUS.com. I had it separated into two parts. I know there are grammatical errors and spelling errors in both articles.
So you didn't send it to me to proofread?
In fact, Steve posted it. Steve Quayle posted it in the Q alerts. And I talked to Steve this weekend, and by the way, he's doing better. You shed some light because I saw some chatter in the chat room last week that he was taken to the hospital and he was having respiratory problems. He was having respiratory problems. He was not taking. He's had severe bronchitis for a couple of times. In fact,
you could tell on the show the trouble breathing sometimes and holding back the coughing.
And God bless him. I mean, the guy's a trooper, and I know he's got other issues as well, other breathing problems and like high blood pressure and stuff. But what happened was he just suffered kind of like an asthmatic attack, if you will, on Friday. So he went to one of those urgent care places, and they took care of him there. They gave him treatment there.
So it wasn't any kind of anthrax powder he opened in? And
No. There was and I'm not. I really don't want to get into the exact details because it's really not relevant. And
I just asked because somebody's second night that this came up that somebody said something about it in the chat room.
Well, there was a package that had this. It was actually a product. It was a package that had to contain a product, and there was something to the product, a smell, an odor. Actually, the best way I could describe it is, and ladies, you know, because I've helped my wife do this. You know, when you cook a turkey in one of those bags, the roaster bags, you put like a bunch of flour, or not, like a scoop of flour in the bag before you put the turkey in. I don't know why, but anyway, that's what you do. Well, sometimes materials, especially when they're shipped like vinyl materials, or they're shipped with like a talc type powder over the product, and it essentially you take the product out of the bag and it kind of spreads like a cloud.
Okay,
but that's what. Look,
apparently it's common here from somebody who said something about getting imports from China.
Yeah. So, I mean, so don't worry, but pray for him because, I got to tell you, even when we talked this weekend, I think it was, Christmas Eve, we spoke for a little bit. He still sounded really bad. I mean, congested, cough, that type of stuff. So, keep him in his prayers.
My papa, he went to the hospital yesterday. Stroke-like symptoms, but he didn't have a stroke. He just has hard trouble breathing and can't stay on his feet. Keep having dizzy spells. So keep him in your prayers too.
Yeah, and there are a lot
for
of people,
anybody who's sick.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are ill. I got a couple of emails over the weekend as well for some listeners. Let's just keep all of the listeners, all of our extended family, in prayer, and because I'll tell you something, folks. And Joe, I'm just sensing, and folks, I don't know about you, but we're sensing that the time is getting short, and I really don't want to take people like in a downward trajectory mentally on Christmas Day.
But you do it so well every other day.
Thanks. But I think now is the time we have to really start to decide how we're going to handle things make plans, be proactive, a little bit proactive. And we mentioned that last week a little bit. And I think that we need to do that. I think we need to be a little bit more proactive and organize talk show hosts that are not in the not the Hannitys and Limbaughs and stuff like that, but BTR hosts and people like that. We need to organize that and have some sort of a system where we can connect, and then we can let you folks know what's going on. I guess my biggest worry, Joe, is letting our listeners know. That's my biggest worry. Like if we knew something was going to happen, how do we let them know?
If we have the availability of broadcasting, obviously, if we have the availability of print, internet.
Yeah.
If we don't have the electronic ability, then we have to get a lot of flares that shoot very far into the air and have special colors for them to decode them.
Well, the second part of that, though, is what are you going to do? How can we help you in case, like, I know there are some people who are physically infirmed and impaired, and others who are, not mobile. So and our listenership is all across the world. So, we can't do everything. We can certainly try to work something up. And this is something that we're going to be doing this week, trying to just get some sort of a lifeline together. And if anyone has any ideas, please feel free to email them to us. We will look at them.
Well, we got lots of ham radio. People talking about ham radio.
Yes, that's important.
Okay. We have, I'm not sure what kind of satellite function will be around, and I don't know if that's how the ham radios are used.
No.
I'm not sure the different forms of communication that are separate from what I see and use on a daily basis. So.
Well, okay, but
I'm sure a lot of people are the same as me that don't know what a ham radio is, because I'm not on the particulars of that. I don't understand.
I'm not exactly certain how I would describe that. I'm not certain what that is, or even, I guess if you don't know what one is, a lot of help you are.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, I guess at this point, what I would recommend people to do is, there's a lot of talk too of gun confiscation. Boy, I'll tell you something.
If they came right now, I would let them take it just so I could go to sleep.
Well, yeah, but you can't think that way.
No, I know.
But I can't see anything like that going well. I can't see that happening. I can see a voluntary compliance. My DHS source, and folks, if you read what my source said from DHS, they're planning a confiscation, but following a period of amnesty. And then... we're not going to come to your house unless you turn your gun in? Well, yeah, and what they're doing as well.
But think about that, because if they did that, how many people would?
Turn your gun in?
I'm scared that more people than not would, because they wouldn't want the SWAT team.
I don't know.
The intimidation factor of just something like that would be so overwhelming that if you didn't turn your guns in, you could expect to be SWAT teamed at any point of any day or night from then on.
Well, see, I don't really know. I go through this in my head all the time. You see these people with beer muscles on the internet saying, let them come.
I don't want them to come.
Well, that's it. Certainly, that would not be a good thing. And my goodness.
We have guns. We don't ever want to use them. We don't ever want to have to use them. Ever.
And you don't want to be a criminal. Certainly, you don't want to be a criminal by possessing a gun. However, when I say that, if they would criminalize a certain type of weapon, and that's the kind of weapon you own, you don't want to be a criminal. But I think at that point, it would be necessary to engage. I don't know. I don't know the answer to these. I don't think anyone really does. And
it's a spiritual answer, and it's an answer that only the Lord can talk to you about your decision on what to do if things get bad. We can't tell you what's right or wrong. It's in your heart. It's what the Lord guides you to.
Exactly. It's kind of like a year ago, and I think back to last Christmas, we never thought we'd be here doing a radio program 3 hours a day. Last Christmas, we never thought we would be doing it last Christmas. We knew we were going to go to a 5-day-week format.
We didn't know how long it would last. We didn't know if it was be successful.
Right.
And let me tell you something, guys. It has been more successful than either of us. We didn't have goals or expectations. We didn't even know what we were getting into.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me tell you something. The responsibility that we have now from the millions of people that have listened to our show since the beginning of May, and millions of people, it's overwhelming.
Gazillions. No.
It is. The responsibility is overwhelming. To see the numbers that, I don't know, we get when we have special guests on. We have pretty good numbers just on our own. But to see the hundreds of thousands that listen here and there, and this just on Blog Talk Radio, not including the tens to hundreds of people that stream our show, our excellent listeners that stream our show, that put it on YouTube, on all these different channels. And
you know what, for better or worse, I don't even know how to describe this, but Talkers Magazine comes out, and for a friend of mine who's in the business lets me take a look at the numbers, and actually our numbers are larger than some of the radio stations, the commercial radio stations across the country, and we'd be in the top 50 anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But now, having said that, and the reason I brought that up is because you mentioned the responsibility behind what we're talking about.
Yeah, and what really gets me about that is this isn't a radio station where people are driving in their car.
We've got a couple of FM stations or AM stations that they can do that, but
this is a listenership of active listeners where they have to sit down at a computer, sit down at a electronic device, and physically turn it on. Many at the computer, going to their computer, turning it on. They're not just dialing or scrolling through the dials, looking for something to listen to in the car driving through a town.
Precisely.
So
you're actually searching it out and looking.
If it was on the radio, on we'll say 100 AM or FM stations across the country, I'd imagine the numbers would grow exponentially.
I wouldn't even know how they'd measure that, but I don't know.
But anyway, we couldn't do it without you guys. Well over 2.5 million listens in the first 6 months of this year, or since we came to Blog Talk Radio till now. It's been growing every month. The numbers have by the hundreds of thousands, and we can't do it without you guys. We really want to thank you, and that's why we do shows like this, and on Thanksgiving and on Christmas. As much as I did not want to do it today.
Well, there are a lot of people out there that don't have families.
Right.
Right. Boy, and my heart aches for. And while we're on this too, Joe, I want to just say, Lucy, one of our listeners, Lucy, she sent me an email about a young lady who received a flu shot. I'm not exactly certain when. Lucy, I don't have the email right in front of me. I'm trying to dig for it right now, but she received a flu shot, and then she essentially went into a coma. And she's
one of her friends?
Right. In fact, let me just pull up this email here. A girl named Patty is in the hospital. She contracted Guillain-Barré syndrome from a flu shot. Now, she's been in the hospital for a week already. Is on a respirator, ventilator, apparently in a feeding tube, and apparently is paralyzed. Now, Patty is divorced, and she's got 2 girls, Maggie and Morgan. It's highly unlikely that Patty is actually saved, that she knows Jesus. So it's important for us to pray for Patty. Again, Patty, she's in the hospital. She contacted the Guillain-Barré syndrome from a flu shot. It's been going on now about a week, maybe more, probably 9 days now. She's on a respirator, feeding tube. She's paralyzed. folks, keep Patty in your prayers, and certainly keep her two girls, Maggie and Morgan, in your prayers as well. Lucy, we thank you for that, and certainly I've been praying for Patty, and it's sad, especially when you've got family. So I just want to let everyone know that.
Yeah, that's terrible. And whether it's the direct side effect of the flu shot, I hope that somebody takes action and holds these people accountable for what they're doing to people.
Well,
there's an article out there about vaccines. I just saw vaccines, also one on GMO and corn, the deadly connection between the two.
Well, I think we're going to see more and more of this, especially as the Affordable Health Care Act goes into effect and you're essentially made to take vaccinations, or at least that's the theory behind it. Let's warn everyone about the risks of these vaccines. Now, we certainly can't give medical advice, but know that the vaccines...
I can give you this medical advice. Research vaccines or flu shots before you take them. Research what's inside of them, the ingredients. And research what is poison, and they'll have your answer.
Yeah, that's true. But I'd just like to touch on, some hard news, if
I got some here, and you got some.
One thing for certain is the is the information contained in the conversation I had with the gentleman who's close to the DHS, higher-ranking DHS people. The information that imparted, and as I said, you can read it, but to be there to, and I did tape record the conversation, and with his permission, obviously. And one thing I found interesting that he said was there would be more shootings, and wouldn't you know it, the next day, when was it, Saturday or Sunday morning, there was a shooting in Webster, New York, just outside of Rochester, where we go, Joe. 4 volunteer firemen were shot at, 2 were killed.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now,
so why? And what was the guy's motive? He liked to kill.
Yeah, and he had killed in the past. So, I don't know what's going on here, but it's not normal. And my contact also said it's not normal. And I think back to the show that Joe, you and I did with Russ Dizdar and Steve Quayle.
Yes.
About that spiritual darkness that's in the activation of people through, whether it be through mind control or whatever. And people might laugh at that. They might say, "Oh, come on, mind control." Well, the church committee back in the 70s had disclosed the CIA's use of mind control. There's documentation on MKUltra, all of this stuff.
Wait till we have, my father and I haven't exchanged Christmas presents yet because we're doing it on a day when we can get the whole family together, and today wasn't one of those days.
Well, we're supposed to exchange gifts.
Well, we'll be exchanging gifts. I don't know. You'll be exchanging, but I have something for you on that subject that you just might like.
Are they probes to my?
No, it's a learning tool on the history of some of this.
Oh wow! I always like books and DVDs in that regard. But one of the things, the spiritual darkness that is taking over our country, and I also touched on this too. I wrote an article today that's just heavy on my heart. After listening to Gary Bell on Saturday, A View from Space. If you haven't heard of him, he's on AM 640 out of Toronto. And I want to thank the gentleman who sent me the link for his archived shows. I have to, before I post it anywhere, I've got to make sure that it's not proprietary information. But thank you for that. But I listened to it again and again and again. I listened to that show on Saturday night. Actually, it's 3.5 hours long. No guests. I listened to it 4 times, all the way through. So what is that? It's about 15 hours worth of programming, roughly. Joe, Jesus' birthday.
Yeah.
September 11th.
That's what you were saying.
And
it makes sense.
Now, I've got
to a degree.
Well, yeah. And
we know it's not in December.
Right.
We know it was sometime. The Jewish calendar and the calendar we have today were much different 2,000 years ago, 2,000 plus years ago.
But here's the thing. To appreciate the research that Mr. Bell did on this, and also Doc Marquis to a lesser extent, because I did access some of his information, but using astrological charts and information and historical facts, coming up with the date of birth of September 11th in the year 3 BC, according to the calendar that we use now. Obviously, BC and AD didn't exist back then, but they do now, and so would correspond to 3 BC, September 11th. Having said that,
what would have been the 11th, or how many months or days were in the calendar back then? Because I'm not.
Well, there was.
Was it based on a 360-day count yearly?
It depends on which calendar you used. Okay. And because we can get into just a really complex discussion about this.
You did all the research on this. I have heard of it before, just mentioned once. I've never researched it. I know that the birth of Christ did not happen on December 25th.
Right.
I know December 25th is a pagan holiday, which when they made Christmas combined it into a sun worship day. That's the same reason the Sunday.
You're exactly right.
Is churches on Sunday. It is a pagan sun worshiping day. The Sabbath is on Saturday or Friday night to Saturday night, as Jewish people practice it.
Well, I filled up a couple of notebooks on this subject alone, and I want to thank the people who sent me emails saying, well, you know what, I came to a similar conclusion, not quite September 11th, but I'm pretty sure of my research, and it's really not mine as much as it is Mr. Bell's. And then, of course, I went back through and then worked out the numbers and checked his sources. But in the Book of Revelations, or the Book of Revelation, chapter 12, I believe it is, verses 1 through 5, will give you an accounting of the star. The star that's seen, and I'm just looking here at my notes. I've got like I said, I've got two notebooks full. I'm trying to get to the right one, but nonetheless, let's assume for a moment that his information is accurate, and so is mine. What does that tell us? That tells us that September 11th, 2001, September 11th, 1990. All of this, this is not something. These are not coincidences. In other words, that there are darker forces behind the attacks of 9/11, and the people who have said, and I for one have always said, no, they happened kind of pretty much the way that.
What's the guy's name that you got the info from?
Gary Bell.
Gary Bell, and there's a series of YouTube's DVDs. No,
he has a radio show. He's got a radio program Saturday night on AM 640 out of Toronto from 8 to 11:30 p.m. And I listened to that show live, and I downloaded a clip. Now, the problem with that is I'm not sure where you can get the archive, if there's an archived repository of his shows. Somebody sent me a link to one. I'm just not sure whether I'm not sure if it's a proprietary. Whoever sent me that link, if you can post it in the chat room if you're listening, that'd be great. But having said that, there's a couple of questions this raises. Number one, whose birthday are we celebrating today? But I want to preface by saying this. That does not shake. I mean, the fact that the date of birth is not December 25th certainly makes no difference to my faith, nor does it yours. Does it? I don't want to speak for you, but it doesn't make any difference to your faith.
What date he was born on?
Right.
No.
I mean, there's
the fact that he was born for our salvation is what's important. He was born. He made it through. The king who assassinated all the children who were 2 years old or younger.
King Herod, that's right.
Came as prophesied. He fulfilled his prophecy, and he is now inside of each and every one of us, as it states in the Bible.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but when we're told a lie and you follow that lie to its origins, and then you figure out, wait a minute, we're celebrating kind of a pagan holiday, not kind of, but a pagan holiday on the 25th of December. And I recall one of our shows, whether it was, I think it was earlier in the fall, I think the first show we did with Doc Marquis, saying, well, it doesn't really matter, I mean, celebrating it, that doesn't really matter. In a sense it does, because if we look at the reason for the Christmas tree, the reason for the reindeer and sleigh, the reason for Santa, how this all came about, wow. Okay, it's the story is incredible. But biblical, chronological, historical, and astronomical evidence concerning the birth date of Jesus the Messiah.
We're going to have to look into this.
It does point to September 11th in the year 3 BC.
And I can't support that because I did not see the evidence you did. I do not know. It would not surprise me that would end up being the day if it was, because of the evil that has been perpetrated on that day.
Well, see, and that's, okay, and let's stop right there, because regardless...
People think of this day as a curse, as a bad omen now, as a...
Right.
What better way to make, why would that matter when nobody knows the real day anyway?
Well, see, okay, if I'm correct, and this is, if we look at the bigger picture, I think what we have to look at is this. You've got people who do know the actual date of birth of Jesus. And these very same people have perpetuated a lie upon us, forcing us to believe or not correct us, and we celebrate Christmas on December 25th, which has a lot to do with the pagan holiday.
We go to church on Sundays.
Right, but even the December 25th date after the winter solstice is a pagan situation.
And one thing that really confuses me is Easter. How come the date of Easter always changes? Why is it not one set date? If Jesus died on a Friday, right, and rose on a Sunday, why would the date change? Why would it be, one year it's April 10th, 1 year it's March 7th? What is the deal with that? Okay,
that has to do with the difference of calendars from the solar to the lunar calendar.
No, I wasn't sure, so I don't know.
But here's in a nutshell, without getting too far off the rails on this. If you look at this being true, where the birth of Christ did happen in September and people know about it, then think about the mockery. Think about the mockery of God and our religion and our Judeo-Christian faith, that the people who have perpetrated this New World Order scheme upon us, think about the evil that is so pervasive in that and this is what troubles me the most. Because I believe if everyone takes the time out there and looks at the accounts of, for example, Luke in the Bible, chapter 2, and we can go through, just passage upon passage upon passage, and then looks at the astronomical evidence in the Book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Now, I'll just read this little scripture here where it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered." Well, that in 3 BC refers to the constellation Virgo. And on Tishri 1, which would be September 11th, 3 BC, it was the only time in a period of a number of years before and since where there was a certain planetary and moon alignment that essentially, what would I call it, fit the pattern as described in the Bible, as the signs in the heavens. So this is where that comes from. It's astrological as well as historical. And then you work backwards with the knowing John the Baptist's birth and such. But without getting into all that, what I'm most interested in, Joe, is the fact that right now we've got a situation where that date has been knowingly used to advance the agenda of evil through the New World Order. And there are people out there who don't believe in the New World Order. They think, it's just, it's a conspiracy theory. Well, wow, when you start taking this apart bit by bit and you realize the evil that does exist, and then you start looking at the people, you look at George Bush on September 11th, 1990, talking about the New World Order. And you look at what happened 11 years after that in 2001 and 11 years after that with Benghazi. Are all these people involved in this? I'm starting to think that in order to become powerful.
See, I have a problem with that because they have the people so hypnotized, so mesmerized, so brain dead already to the truth. Why do they need to even throw more deception out there that really has no, makes no difference?
That was my thinking at the beginning as well. I thought, well, why even convolute this further? However, no. See, it began. It began 1,000 years ago. This didn't happen. This did not just happen. So what we're seeing in terms of like September 11th, 1990, that particular New World Order speech was more commemorative. It wasn't blazing new ground. It was commemorative. It was saying it was like an in-your-face kind of event.
Okay, a mockery type thing.
Right, and that is what we're seeing.
Okay.
And so, and even to the extent of what happened in Benghazi on 9/11, in the 39-page report, which is significant in New World Order numerology, basically saying the fix is in, 69 days after the actual incident took place, which is indicative of saying, well, this is all just fun and games. Okay, fun and games meaning that it's meaningless. The report's meaningless. So all of this means things. Everywhere, and this is what bothers me, when everyone is looking for evil in all the wrong places, it's right in front of our faces. But we don't understand it because we don't have the program for the play. That's the problem. It'd be like watching a sport that you're not familiar with. For example, lacrosse. I can watch that. I don't even know what that is. I can watch that and have no idea the rules of the game and not understand it. And if I didn't have a rule book or something in front of me so I could understand it, I wouldn't know what I was watching. To me, that's what's happening today. It's unfolding like that today. So that to me is important because now we identify the game or the agenda, and then from that we can see who the players are. And by seeing who the players are, we can see that essentially everything is corrupt. All of the leadership is corrupt. So, that's the deal there.
Moving on to some Middle Eastern news here, as things from Syria have been relatively quiet. Here is an article from Yahoo, they took it from AP. Rebels threaten to storm 2 Christian Syrian towns. Rebels have threatened to storm 2 predominantly Christian towns in central Syria if residents do not evict government troops. They say are using the towns as a base to attack nearby areas. A video released by the rebels show Rashid al-Fadiyah, who identified himself as the commander of the Asanger Brigade for Hama Province, calling on locals in Marada and Squabelia to rise up against President Assad's forces or prepare for an assault. Assad's gangs in the cities are shelling our villages with mortars and rockets, destroying our homes, killing our children, say Abdullah Fida, who wore the Islamic headband and was surrounded by gunmen. You should perform your duty by evicting Assad's gangs, otherwise our warriors will storm your hideouts of the Assad gangs.
So, wow. See what's taking place here? You've got 19 different sectarian groups in Syria, 16 to 19. The Christians are going to be exterminated in Syria because of our actions, or become refugees. If they're either going to die in place or become refugees. So, because of our actions in Benghazi, the Christians are going to suffer and die, and that number of 4 million will be reached. I don't see how they could walk this back. So what you just referenced there is the direct result of our actions, our intervention in Syria.
Yep, and I can see Obama taking the side of the rebels already, acknowledging them as the government, saying, well, this is a righteous action, killing these Christians. They were getting in the way. They were not letting, Al-Qaeda advance in their agenda of destroying the country.
See, ladies and gentlemen,
and if they want to defend themselves, then it is a war crime.
Right.
And et cetera, and et cetera.
See, I really believe at the end of the day what we're seeing here, and I've been, it's kind of funny for me to even say this, but I've been in prayer about this. I guess I can say that because it's more like studying. I've been studying, but prayerfully so. And what I'm seeing here is a war against Christians, against Jews, against all believers of the Old and New Testaments, specifically Christians, but Jews as well. And that's at the heart of this. And to talk about this on the day that we celebrate the birth of our Lord, I mean, it's difficult to really get into it. You want to really make this a more upbeat type of program, but it's more difficult. It's difficult to do so because this is all out war against Christians. And I have to tell you, I think that this was their plan. Joe, I mean, how else would you couldn't plan it better than they did.
No. You referenced the firefighters.
Yes.
Pierce Morgan. There's a petition that has received more than 60,000 signatures to deport Pierce Morgan over his constant, yelling and griveling about banning the Second Amendment.
Right.
On Monday night, Pierce Morgan averted attention away from a petition to have him deported by tweeting about the 2 firefighters that were murdered, by saying, I don't care about the petition to deport me. I do care about the poor firemen who were murdered with assault weapons, the CNN host said. The man suspected of the murders of the firemen was an ex-convict who had served time for killing his grandmother with a hammer. News reports said he used a rifle to shoot the firefighters. Anti-Second Amendment advocates like Pierce Morgan are fond of using the term assault weapon to describe any firearm, and that is true. They are now calling semi-automatic handguns assault weapons.
Well, and therein lies the problem. Folks, we're going to see this happen. You're going to have...
This is terrible. I mean, they're going to keep killing. They're going to keep shooting people till they ban the guns. See, and the gun-banned cities have the worst gun crimes. Well, it makes no sense.
It doesn't. I can feel your passion. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, God.
I can feel your passion. Look, I understand this, but see, what's going to happen is there will be more shootings. This is what the DHS, my DHS contact said. Now, I'm not. Let me be clear on this. It's my understanding when he said that it was based on models that they have. It's not based on they're going to do them. They're not going to be DHS agents are not out there shooting people. It's based on criminal models and crime statistics models and predictive behavior. That's what. So what he's saying is they're going to exploit that. So when this happened, by the way, that Webster, New York fire, Police Chief Gerald Pickering, and we know the people in Webster fairly well. That's just a suburb of Rochester. We've done a lot of work up there. The remains of 62-year-old William Spengler were found in the burned-out house. Spengler armed himself with a revolver, shotgun, and military-style rifle before he set his house on fire. I'm sorry. Let me go back and
get your news together.
Yeah. I'm looking at this, and folks, have you noticed too the poorly? I don't want to say poorly worded, but the poorly structured news items. It's almost like these people have not. There's no editing involved here. Let me read this. This is from George Walsh from the Associated Press. Okay, you decide. Body found in bird home of killer of 2 firemen. Police have found human remains in the burned-out home of the Webster, New York ex-con who killed 2 firefighters and believe the victim is the gunman's sister. Okay, I missed that. That's my fault. Police Chief Gerald Pickering said Tuesday the remains were found in the chart house that 62-year-old William Spengler shared with his 67-year-old sister, Cheryl. So, apparently, police say Spengler armed himself with a revolver, shotgun, and military-style rifle before he set his house on fire to lure first responders into a pre-dawn death trap on Christmas Eve. Now, Pickering says Spengler was equipped to go to war. Spengler killed himself as 7 houses burned around him. 7 houses. A friend said Spengler hated his sister, but police say motive hasn't been determined. Apparently, hate would be a good way to describe that. So here's a guy that, as you pointed out, murdered his grandmother, was let out of jail. That was a while ago, though. Let out of jail, served his time.
And murdered his grandmother with a hammer.
Right.
Hammer.
And then killed his sister, who he shared a home with, and then killed 2 firemen, wounded 2 others, and then killed himself. And we say there's nothing wrong. And we say it's all because of guns.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Hammer, fire.
Like the police officer who called in a couple weeks ago and said I never arrested a gun in my life.
The sister, or the wife of the police officer, that's correct.
Just like I saw a picture of a pro-gun picture today that stated, a gun is a tool like any other tool in a toolbox, and, it doesn't fire itself. It can't be used unless one picks up the tool to use it. Some people pick up tools, to fix cars. Some people fix up. Killing has been a part of the history of humanity since the first family of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel.
Right.
It will continue. How many wars were fought in the Middle Ages and before that with spears, sticks, stones, and fire? War and murder have been a part of our human society since its inception.
That's
what makes people think that guns will end that?
Well, it depends on if you ask a socialist or, the progressive, socialist, communist, whatever you want to call them. It's the Second Amendment, obviously, folks, you know as well as I do, is it's in place to protect against the tyranny of government. It's not for hunting. It's not for self-defense.
Nope. Well, yeah, it's for self-defense.
Well, yeah, in a larger sense, but it's
the main. Yeah, you're right. There, the first definition is to protect yourself against a tyrannical, out-of-control government that is turned against the people. That is specifically why they put the amendment in the Bill of Rights and said it shall not be infringed, no matter what, no matter how many mass shootings there are, how many media reports that they can do to brainwash people into thinking that it's okay to change the laws. It shall not be infringed, period. There wasn't only if this happens, only if that happens, only if society turns this way. It says never, period.
Wow, man. All right. Well, that's true. So now we've got Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we have her.
Now we've got her saying, and
Let's
folks,
see if I still got the audio up. Here it is.
Please, you listen to what she's got to say about this, because this is what my guy from DHS said. I'm not sure, was this after my meeting with this guy or before?
I think before. It's only 22 seconds. Here
All
it
right.
goes.
I'm going to introduce in the Senate, and the same bill will be introduced in the House, a bill to ban assault weapons. It will ban the sale, the transfer, the importation, and the possession, not retroactively, but prospectively. But the purpose of this bill is to get weapons of war off the street.
Oh, so you mean you're going to take Eric Holder out of business?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, are you talking about our weapons?
Boy, you're pretty,
or how about this one?
You're in a state.
Jonathan, I have a list, a horrible list of the deadliest U.S. school shootings. Columbine, of course, killed 12 students before the two shooters took their own lives. We're hearing reports now that up to 20 children may have been shot. It is hopefully, we say this every single time we cover one of these things, a line in the sand. There has got to be some kind of measurable change, some kind of reaction. One would hope that there will be some political capital to reform the way in which we handle gun and gun violence in this country.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Well,
political capital.
Here's what I'm concerned with. Senator Dianne Feinstein has said that, now you heard that 22-second clip of her. That was, I guess that was prior to, we'll say, Saturday. Since then, she's saying we're looking into a buyback program, whereas initially she said, it's going to be not going to be retroactive. Now she's saying, well, confiscation could be an option, agreeing with Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York. So, how would this work? And would this be the tipping point in the United States? Would this be people's line in the sand? I'd have to say that if this doesn't do it, then we are done. I mean, we're totally enslaved if this doesn't do it.
I want to say this from Patriot John. Just sent me this in the chat room. Washington, D.C. police chief, or D.C. police investigate NBC Gregory for brandishing illegal magazine.
Yes, I saw that flash by in the news feed that we had.
He violated D.C.'s gun banning laws during a recent taping of Meet the Press by brandishing a 30-round magazine for AR-15s. It was an empty magazine without a gun.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what if he was trying to make a point.
The law says no person in the district shall possess, sell, transfer any large capacity ammunition feeding device, regardless of whether the device is attached to a firearm, for the purpose of this subsection. The term large capacity ammunition feeding device means a magazine, belt, drum, feed strip, or similar device that has the capacity of, or that can be readily restored to be converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition.
Well, what he did, according to the information I'm looking at right now, is during a taping of Meet the Press, he held up one of these magazines, a 30-round magazine, for demonstration purposes. And it was a discussion, simple as that, in Washington, D.C. And, of course, the cameras were rolling, and now that, he has, to show even the absurdity of these laws, using that as a visual aid on a television program, unloaded, not attached to any gun, just by having it in his possession, he violated D.C. gun laws. Personally, I don't care if he's the worst liberal, the worst progressive, the worst socialist.
He doesn't deserve to go to jail or be charged.
No, not at all. Especially in that venue. When you're it would be like It needs no comparison. You understand, folks.
Yeah, we're going to go to break a couple minutes early here.
Yeah, we started the show actually a couple of minutes early. So
actually a couple minutes late, but we're going to go to break. We'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us. We'll be taking your calls and more. 661-244-9839 on this very special Christmas edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. God bless each and every one of you for spending your Christmas evening with us, because we couldn't think of a better way to spend it than with you. You have a great break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have a long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Hey, welcome back, folks. Welcome back to this wonderful Christmas edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. So this is our first show we've ever done on Christmas, and we're glad to do it. We're glad to have you with us. Something that caught my eye, too, I wanted to mention, kind of a sign of the times, if you will. And I don't know how many people have seen this. And you can think in your own childhood, going to the mall, or maybe you probably didn't have malls back then, but perhaps if you're like me, we didn't have malls to go to, but if you went to somewhere where there was a Santa, you make a list and give it to Santa. But a dad is the 10th most popular Christmas request. Think about that.
Wow.
Children are saying
they want
a
father.
dad for Christmas.
That shows you the level of the decadence of our society.
2,000 British parents found most children would put a new baby brother or sister at the top of the Christmas list, closely followed by requests for a real-life reindeer, pet horse, and so on and so forth. But the number 10 is a father.
Interesting.
Sad, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
it could be a mother, and the survey doesn't get into. Well, by the way, the request for a mother, and the poll took place in Great Britain, was number 23 in the list. That the fact that either one should even make the top 50 is
sad.
Yes, indeed it is.
We're going to go to the phone lines. We're going to go to Jeff and then Donna. Jeff to Chelsea, Massachusetts. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Oh yes. Hey guys, how you doing? What's funny is what a nice quiet day it was. I went out on my own to commune with the Lord and then go for a Bible study, but the church was closed, so I came back home. But I'll tell you what, one of the main thoughts that came to my mind was this. I mean, the day's going to come when our citizens are going to go on the computer. You're going to go to Steve Quayle or your site or Rick Wiles, any of the Christian patriots out there, and all of a sudden you're going to see Homeland Security. Your computer has been blocked.
Domain, because domain seizure.
Well, yeah. Your computer has been permanently blocked because you've gone on a hate site, and the next day Homeland Security comes over, grabs your computer, and picks your computer with a fine-tooth comb. And that thought came to me, and I'm telling you something, though I had a nice commute with the Lord, that thought was in my mind, and I'm telling you something, I think it's the last days of freedom, and though I don't celebrate Christmas, and I think he had a great show with Doc Marquis, kudos to Doc. I mean, I'm a friend of David Bay's, who David Bay and Doc Marquis, communicate with each other. They're friends.
Oh, good.
So I like Doc Marquis. He did a very good job on that program, and you guys do a good job also. And I just don't know where our freedoms are going. I mean, I've been at the same site for 9 years in security. I do plan on getting out of security, and I just don't know anymore. I mean, I just don't know what to say. I just don't know what to do. Where do you really see this country going? Because of your contact with Homeland Security, the camps out there. When do you think they're going to start making Christians disappear like they do in other countries? That's my main question, is the when. When do you think you're going to see Christians grabbed off the system? I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about born-again Christians. That's my main question. And Jews. And we're not heading for Nazi Germany, we're heading for communist Russia. Guys, God bless you. Have a good night.
Jeff, God bless you. And the only thing I can say for my Homeland Security source is to keep a close eye on the spring of this year. Now he's going to have more. He asked me to hold more until after the inauguration takes place, but I can see things based on what he said changing in the spring. I can also see a change at the same time. A monetary collapse will occur, or a dollar collapse will occur. The fiscal cliff that we're seeing, by the way, everyone is saying, well, looks like it is going to take place.
I have news on the fiscal cliff, and this is Mike. This is probably not what you're going to be talking about, but fiscal cliff deal means jails will release inmates.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. Explain that, if you will.
This is from CBS, from Eugene, Oregon. A scenario that police in Western Oregon feared came true in the thick of holiday season after 24 inmates were freed from a county jail that could no longer afford to hold them.
All right.
Less than 1 hour after a low-level offender walked out, authorities say he was demanding that a bank teller hand over money. In a time of budget cuts, cases where inmates get out of jail with little punishment only to commit more serious crimes shortly after they're released have become all too common, authorities say. Many in law enforcement predicted this would happen, and it could only get worse if the nation goes over the so-called fiscal cliff. The recession and steady reduction in federal subsidies to timber countries have led Oregon. I'm sorry, this just refreshed on me.
All right. So what you're saying is because of
it makes me crazy.
Constraints.
The sheriff says yes. The prosecutors have to toss out more than a quarter of the cases that cross their desk just because there aren't enough people to handle them or the resources financially to do the same.
Well, okay, we can go back in time a little bit and realize that one of Obama's first moves was to really financially rape Americans.
Yes, all the wasteful programs, all the taxes that what did I say the chart said? 75% of the new tax revenue is going towards new spending, not budget deficit slices. So, well,
one of the first things that he did was inherit or receive the $700 billion troubled asset relief program. That was basically a gift from Bush. And then we have his Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner, who is an IRS tax cheat. We have and Geithner bailed out global banks as head of the Fed in New York.
$16 trillion secret federal loan to foreign banks and other countries that don't have the United States' best interests at heart, our tax dollars. And then we have a $16+ trillion loan that isn't even our loan, our debt.
Right. So, I mean, what is? And by the way, that $700 billion TARP program, people don't realize that's a rolling fund. And if you take nothing away from this program other than this tonight, just remember this: when people refer to the TARP bailout back in the early days in 2008, 09, that means it's a rolling fund, which means the same money, the same $700 million, gets loaned out over and over and over again whenever it's needed, not to people but to banks. And Geithner, as you said, he bailed out global banks as head of the Fed in New York. Of course, he's made Treasury Secretary, so he could continue bailing out AIG, Bear Stearns, Chase, and so on. And Volcker, who had purposely caused, and a lot of people don't know this either, but Paul Volcker, he had purposely caused the debt crisis of the early 1980s. Larry Summers, remember him? Decimated banking regulations under Clinton to permit wild speculation, hedge funds. They were brought in by Geithner under Obama. Now Obama has the fascism here. I guess there's no other way to put it. But there's a lot of pork too that in this stimulus bill, the stimulus bills that exist.
They never offer any, or the budget reduction plans never offer any real solutions to the underlying problem, which is the Federal Reserve and having to borrow money, our own money, at an interest from a private bank that is working to get us and our resources and our land under international law.
Right.
And that's not addressed in the fiscal cliff or budget crisis talks. No, what do they talk about? They're going to cut your pensions, what you've paid into for your whole life, your Social Security that's been taken out of your check your whole life.
They call them entitlement programs.
Right.
You paid into those.
They're not going to talk about. They're not going to talk about the hundreds of trillions of dollars they waste on phony wars. At the same time, using the drug and gun black market to make billions of more dollars. They're not going to talk about, the more money this president spent than any other president in the U.S. history combined together. They're not going to talk about why. They're going to talk about the Federal Reserve. They're going to talk about, people are going to have to work until they're 87, and their Medicare is going to have to be cut to one Tylenol a year. And if you get cancer, you're going to be basically going to be like a lottery system. We'll give you a number, and if your number comes up, you'll get the transplant.
Well, Yeah, and all along at the same time, Henry Waxman, and folks, you can take this to the bank. In my research, I was going through some of the financial aspects of where we're at. Henry Waxman, the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, get this, he facilitated over $600,000 in cash and medical supplies back in 2004 to the terrorists in Fallujah, who were at that time killing American soldiers every day. Crazy stuff. So all of this money, it's all of this money that we're seeing being spent. And you look at the fiscal cliff. Where is Obama today? Is he working like we are? I mean, I don't consider this work, believe me. Well, in a way I do, but is he working like we are? No, he's in Hawaii, isn't he? And how much is that costing taxpayers? How can a CEO of a country justify spending the money of the country to take a vacation when we're in such dire financial straits? And I don't care if it was George Bush or Reagan, or I don't care.
No, Bush got hammered for the amount of times he golfed, and Obama's almost a third higher than Bush's 8-year golf totals than his one term.
I don't know.
We're going to go back to the phones here. We're going to go to Sheila. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I think Donna dropped off, who we were going to go to next. If you want to call back, Donna, we'll put you back on. Sheila, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Thanks for the call.
Hi, guys.
Hi, and Merry Christmas.
You too. And watch what you're eating. Gluttony's not a good thing, Joe.
No, I was good.
In my defense, I was very good. I just had a bowl of Cheerios. I'm kidding. No, I didn't. Honestly, I was very good. I didn't. I was not gluttonous.
Yeah, I didn't even get any pie.
I was not. No, I was very good.
My kids go out for a big breakfast in the morning on Sunday morning, and that's it. They don't eat the rest of the day.
It sounds like something I do. Although my breakfast does consist of a couple of slices of pizza and some coffee to wash it down.
Dog treats.
Sometimes. Dog treats?
It's dog treats. He likes it.
You know, I got to tell you, when I turn my computer on, the first thing I do is go over to your website to see what's on it. And, of course, you had your thing on there where you was going to be off yesterday. So I went over on Alex's website and read the news over there because I hadn't looked at the news all weekend. And so I went over on the Drudge Report, and I'm sitting there, and I had been back on your website a couple times today, and nothing there. So anyway, I was reading the Drudge Report, and something said, Sheila, go back over to Hagmann. And I just kept on reading, and I heard it again, just go back on Hagmann. So I did. I went back over there, and you had that article up there. And I read it twice, and I'm like, September the 11th? Who would know that? You know, who would know that? I know I don't. Crazy?
Huh? Isn't that crazy, Sheila? I mean, really, when you think about it, isn't that?
You've got to know. See, there's an evangelist I listen to once in a while. He's a Jewish Christian. His name is Terry Stone. Some of your listeners might know who he is, but he does a lot of numerology and codes and stuff like that. Well, I just don't have the gift of that. My eyes glaze over when he talks about that stuff because it gets really, really deep. But I read it, and I read it twice, and I'm thinking, how would anybody know that his birthday was on September the 11th? The only thing I could have come up with was Lucifer himself, and then Doc Marquis came to mind because he knows when Lucifer was, or the Antichrist was born. He said it was 1969.
Well, yeah.
So there's always been speculation that Jesus was born in either September or October, and I do not know how much stock to put into that.
Well,
because I don't know that.
I can tell you,
I have not done that research. Like I said, it has not been that.
It has to do with it has to do with the census. It has to do with the wise men who they were. It's got to do with the star. You know, was it really a star or was it a cluster of stars?
The way I look at it is that his birth isn't what we are to watch for. It is the signs of his second coming, and that is what I'm watching for. You know, and so I guess it could be very important, but it's just not something that I've been led to looking into until he brought it up, my father, and it was very interesting what he presented to me because it made sense.
Well, so does this mean our Christmas tree's pagan?
Yes.
I haven't looked at my Christmas thing since you had Doc Marquis on there.
You know what, Sheila? Look, here's, you know.
I mean, I would say yes, but as other people
don't
say, God knows what's in our hearts.
That's right.
But at the same time, I think we do have a duty to understand why things are the way they are right now. And why people perish for a lack of knowledge is in the Bible, I think, for a very important reason. I think we need to know the whole truth, at least what he's given us.
Well, you're the only ones talking about it. I have never, ever heard of it before. Never. Anything about the tree, nothing. So we're certainly being denied the truth. I mean, I was born into it. You, Doug, you were born into it. You know?
And that's see, and show that, okay, what you just said there is so important. We were born into this and taught a lie, okay? Now, I'm not saying, well, everyone should take down their Christmas trees and, you know, not celebrate Christmas. Let's just know the truth. That's the only thing I want to do. Let's know the truth and why we are being led down this path. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the important thing. But I found that to be chilling to think that, you know, 9/11 was tied into his birth. I mean, if that's actually true, Lucifer's behind everything we're seeing going on, period. I mean, the devil's doing his work, you know.
Yeah.
Look at the tornadoes right now out in Texas and whatnot. The weather station said they have never seen anything like this in December.
Did they have tornadoes?
Yes.
I know they were warning. Okay.
All day.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we're going to get up to 14 inches tomorrow, they're calling for.
Of snow, yeah.
But you know, things, but the tornadoes, that's weird, boy, this time of year, you know.
It is. And we, you know, and certainly our prayers are going to be with the people in the paths of those tornadoes and the people who have suffered from them today. You know, what a horrible thing that would have, but you know, the changes we're seeing, the birth pains that we're seeing.
Exactly.
We need to pay attention to this. We really do.
You know, yesterday when I saw that story break about those 4 firefighters that were shot, the first thing I thought was, okay, they're going from these little kids to firefighters now. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah. You know, Sheila, when I heard that, and then I heard shortly thereafter that they caught the man who did it, in my mind I was thinking, who would, and folks, follow me on this line of thinking, who would actually think to do that? Set a house on fire and then
just to shoot the firemen.
Shoot the firemen. Because, you know, typically, and we see this a lot during our investigations, a fire is if it's arson, it's usually done, if not for insurance purposes, but to cover up a crime, which this did. So why draw attention to it by shooting the fireman?
That's the last thing you would want to do is to draw attention to it, like with that kind of attention.
Yeah. So
it's weird. I mean,
things are not making sense. The behavioral patterns of people are going outside of the norm here.
And you know, I've noticed that all these killings, these people end up killing themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I heard the young guy that I saw the video of him in that mall in, I think it was Oregon, and some guy shot 2 people, and this young guy happened to have been carrying a concealed weapon, and he pulled it out and he hid behind a pole, and the shooter saw him with his gun, and he stuck his gun in his mouth and shot his brains out. But he was afraid to shoot at him because he saw a shadow right behind him, and he was afraid he'd miss him and hit somebody else. But he automatically stuck the gun in his face and killed himself. And that's what they're all doing, is killing themselves. Yeah, he had shot 2 people. And this man was just a young guy. I saw the video of him, and he said, I got around the pole, and I had my weapon out, and he just happened to glance over there and saw me. And he said when he saw me with the gun in my hand, pointed at him, he just stuck the gun in his mouth and it
was my understanding, Sheila, and thank you for that clarification, because it was my understanding that a gentleman with a concealed weapons permit actually took out that shooter, but you're saying that it was a suicide, so...
Oh, he did it himself, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He said, see, saw me with my gun trained on him, he knew he was done.
Okay.
But yet at the same time, he said he was afraid to really shoot at him because he was afraid he'd miss him and hit somebody else because he saw a shadow behind him. And he was afraid there was somebody behind him. But he just happened to glance over there, saw him with that gun pointed at him, and he stuck the gun in his mouth. So this kid never even fired.
That's horrific. I mean, the whole thing is horrific. The mindset of people today, this dark spirit has permeated the spirits of people today. We're seeing things that we haven't seen before.
Exactly.
So
well, we're nearing the end. You know, the earth is burning. We're nearing the end. Jesus said you will see many troubling things before my return, and that's what we're seeing.
And in fact, we are, Sheila. We are. We're seeing the birth pains. We're seeing all of these odd things, the weather, the earthquakes, and we're going to have Sanday on again here soon. But Tom Horn will be on sometime after the first of the year as well with Steve Quayle. So probably the second week of January. So it's good. We've got a lot of good programs lined up about this very topic.
That's good. That'll be a good thing.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. I'm almost afraid for my granddaughters and my kids to go to a mall at this point. You know, they got to watch all the time what's going on around them. It's getting so bad.
Situational awareness is always a good thing. And ladies and gentlemen, please, when you're out in public, if you don't have a concealed weapons permit, I mean, if you at the very least carry mace, learn. Just keep your eyes on your surroundings. Situational awareness is so important. It can save your life. And if you get that tingly feeling like you shouldn't, go down that alley or go in that, listen to your spider senses. And if you find yourself in a position where you've got to where you're defenseless, definitely retreat. And keep yourself safe. But situational awareness is very important.
I just want to say we've been a few times have been trolled in the chat room by pro-gun, Obama worshipping.
Anti-gun.
I'm sorry, pro-gun control.
Oh, pro-gun control. Okay.
Pro-Obama worshipping people that I called in and asked to talk about, but they apparently are too senile to do so. So we had to get rid of them. But what do you expect when we have a mass of people indoctrinated into gun control, and we have these events happening at the same time, and this is what we get. We're going to move on to area code.
Sheila, God bless you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. We're going to go on to area code 305. They've been on hold the longest. We thank you for your patience. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening.
Yes, we're here.
Hi, this is Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I don't know. I'm ricocheting around listening to stuff, but I think I'll just go. Anyway, Merry Christmas, I guess. We can still do that. I got a Santagram from my daughter, and it's funny because you call it in and it's an MP3 and it reads back to you and it says, "Ho ho ho, this is Santa. I just talked to your daughter, and she told me what you really want this year the most is the truth." and she knows me well. And I said, "Yeah, that's it, the truth. No matter how painful it is, that's what I want. I don't want to be in the darkness." So anyway, I guess we'll go with the fiscal cliff subject. We could go with the Jesus birth. A friend of mine is Jewish, Messianic Jewish.
Okay.
And she was telling me the birth of Christ Jesus is in September because it's in the fall. It's at the fall feast in the creche with Jesus being born, with the animals and that whole type of a structure is in the fall feast. You go into that kind of a tabernacle where you build the shelter. And you bring all your stuff in with you, your animals and everything like that. And it's right before Rosh Hashanah. And right at that same time. And that's when he would have been born, is in that time frame. So anyway, that's what I was told. I mean, I'm not, fully versed on it, but that's what I was told. But anyway, to backtrack to the fiscal cliff, I spoke with you a while back. It was during the debates, I guess, and I brought up the fact that on the stage that I thought the game was rigged, that I noticed the handshakes that were going on and just the general feeling of the whole debate thing, that the fix was in. That the powers behind the real controllers here that control the whole thing that we see, being it's just a stage with players, that the game was rigged from the get-go for Obama to go back in for the second term, because he's done such a good job for them at destroying everything that they figure they'd have him continue on. And I don't think that this fiscal cliff, I think that the thing all along has been for us to go over the fiscal cliff, because I think they want everybody to be whacked big time with taxes and to just be burdened down with expenses, and to put everybody into austerity. And of course they're going to release the prisoners, because we got to have mass chaos. That's how you're going to bring the whole society into terror. They were going to terrorize everybody so that everybody will plead for martial law to be protected from the criminals that are roaming, around the countryside and stuff, and raping, pillaging, and plundering everybody. And of course, everybody will be so burdened down with the Agenda 21 taxes, with energy and everything, food. When derivatives go off the scales, the money will be worth nothing, and you'll be paying every last cent. Just like Lindsey Williams said, you won't be able to afford anything. You won't. You'll be trying to figure out, should I pay my mortgage? Can I afford food? Can I put gas in the car? Then you got to figure out, be like me, okay? Now, I don't have any health insurance because I work hard. I pay my own taxes. I pay my own Social Security, and by the time I'm done, I don't really have enough as an independent worker with, not affiliated with a company or anything, for me to buy my own health care is really expensive, so I don't carry any. So I'll have to pay to not have health insurance, okay? So, and I still won't have health insurance.
You will have to pay for the government health insurance, or you will have to pay the fine for
so the
not
whole
purchasing
thing, they were never going to solve the fiscal cliff. It was never meant to be solved. It's meant to just bottom the entire country out and bring us down, and that's what I really think. And you know, look at, we got this guy in the presidency, right? I mean, he's on the UN Security Board. It's unconstitutional for him to be on the UN Security Council. You can't serve two things. You can't serve globalism and the United States.
In December of 2009, Obama served as the head of the UN Security Council while he was a sitting president, in violation of the Logan Act, where you cannot serve as two titles, one as a president of a nation and one as a head of an international body. It is the violation of the Logan Act. It was an impeachable offense then. It should have been just like every other one of these impeachable offenses.
And last year he signed the NDAA on New Year's Eve. Guaranteed he's going to sign the UN gun bill this New Year's Eve. Ho, ho, ho. That's about the size of it.
I'm not familiar with the gun ban this New Year's Eve, but I don't doubt that he's going to start it.
You'll be hearing about it. Sometime around the two swearing in ceremony around the 20th, when he gets to have the private one and then the one for show. You know, like, remember the first one around? He couldn't choke out the words "faithfully serve the Constitution," so they had to have a redo with the Illuminati Judge Roberts, you know, in private. You know, I mean, it's just a joke, and it's not a funny joke at that. We're screwed big time, and it's just time for everybody to hold it together, circle the wagons, and try to survive the best you can, and just grow eyes in the back of your head, and be as careful as you can, and pray to the Lord for protection. And that's all you can do. And a lot of people, you know, will probably physically die, but if you're with Jesus, your soul still will live on. So that's about it. That's what I got.
Well said. And you
heavy
covered
duty,
a lot of ground there.
It's heavy duty because it is heavy duty.
Well, indeed it is. Thank you for the call. And
okay, guys, hold it together and keep on doing what you're doing.
We will. And
the
folks,
search for the truth is not easy. It's very shocking and painful, and it takes your breath away.
It does, and it's very tedious as well, just to make sure that you're on the right track. But just to let people know, the NDAA for 2013. And I'm not sure how many people realize this. The new NDAA bill, 2013, still allows for military detention within the United States. I thought we had covered this, but apparently we did not, and for that I apologize. Joe, the law allowing for indefinite detention of Americans without trial had been stripped from from the NDAA for 2013, but tweaks means that it's been reinstituted. Okay, so if you look at the NDAA, the language, the parsing of the language, there were a couple of amendments, suggested, then one was passed and then redone. But the bottom line is it still allows in 2013 for the indefinite detention of U.S. citizens. And this is a done deal. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, I really don't know what else to say about this. And when you look at others talking about crises, plural, coming to the United States, we're going to reemerge, I think, after the beginning of the year into a new revolution, not just a civil war, but a revolution. And I'm kind of, in a way, I'm kind of surprised that it has taken this long. I mean, we lost all of our lawful money back in 1913 and 47. We lost, we can go back and hit various dates in history, but look at where we are right now. Look at what Augusto Perez had said as well. Folks, yeah. I mean, remember the program with Augusto Perez?
Yep.
And Augusto Perez is someone that I believe we should pay very close attention to.
You need to get him back on the show?
Yeah, if there's time. And, I don't know. It's just, to me, it just seems like we're looking at some very, very serious times ahead.
I'm going to go to caller area code 307. You're coming on now with Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Christmas special. What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, hey, guys.
Hey.
How you doing?
Very well. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I guess I really don't celebrate Christmas because of the whole pagan thing, but
right.
I have a whole bunch of insight that's been given to me, and there's just too much to cover in one show or an email or two. But there's a couple of points I'd like to relate. If you do a root search on Revelation 13:18 on the 3 Greek letters that John Baptist, he was talking about the number 666. And if you do a root word search on those 3 Greek letters, you'll be pretty surprised on what it spells out. And there's another one in Luke 10:18.
What does it spell out?
3 Greek letters. I forget how to say them exactly, but the first one's the Greek letter chi or ki, and the second one is z, and the third one is it's like the S for the Greek. I'm not a Greek expert, but if you put them all together, you got to remember that in the old languages they didn't have vowels in the Hebrew or the Greek, and English is kind of a unique language because it's the only one that has vowels that was introduced.
This is true. Right. So where are we headed with the Greek letters? I mean, what are we looking at?
It spells out, back then they didn't have the letter J. The letter J was invented in 1641, I believe. So John was trying to, communicate the sound of the letter J, even though he didn't have the letter J, and it's pretty much spelling out Jesus, and because Jesus wasn't the real name of the teacher of righteousness. I mean, I don't disregard Jesus or his teachings, but because his teachings were true. It's just the name was changed. Instead of being translated into Joshua, it was transliterated. And just do a little research on that. It's quite surprising.
Well, we're not going to let this go, obviously. So what are you saying? Are you saying that Jesus is not the Lord and Savior? He's the actual the name Lucifer, or what?
Well, the name itself is false, but the teacher was true, and his words were true. His real name was Joshua because he was Hebrew. He was a Jew, right? He spoke Jewish or Aramaic, I guess.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, but let me pin you down here.
Let me ask you a question real quick. What if the whole Jesus name was just like a setup for like a trap, like an ensnarement? to lure people away from the truth.
Is a name really going to the difference between Yahweh and Jesus? If you're referencing the same individual and he knows that in your heart, is he going to hold that against you?
Well, it's kind of like this. There's many names for the evil one, and there's only one name for the one and true only God. And God isn't his name. God is a title. And actually, God is actually the name of a old deity of luck and fortune.
Are you talking about Christ being a title? Yeah, because the only way that your conversation makes sense.
No,
is
Christ means the same as Messiah. One's Greek, one's Hebrew. It means anointed one.
Christ, okay, but I'm trying hard to understand you here.
So
Christ is a title. Just as for an FYI, Christ is not the last name. It's not anything else, but Christ is a title. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now that said, the difference between Yeshua and Jesus in translation. When you say transliteration, I understand what you mean, but that's that's going off into an area which is unnecessary for this conversation.
Right. Well, what if the evil one did all this just to confuse everybody, to keep them from the real truth of his name? Because I mean, his name was forgotten, and I think that's why he's kind of upset at everybody, because he has a name. He gave it to it's the Tetragrammaton. He gave it to Moses, I think. And everybody's forgotten his name. And that's where they get Jehovah from, and that's where they get Yahweh from. They add vowels to his name, his personal name.
Yeah, I know where you're going, and I understand. Okay, look, I understand where you're headed with this. I got to tell you, I certainly have a lot of reservations about. Look, I understand your, and I'm not trying to be. I want to give you a fair shake here, but I think where you're treading is extremely dangerous territory when you are saying the name.
The name of Jesus
is actually
a perversion that can lead your soul to damnation.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, exactly.
The evil one, he can appear as an angel of light, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying his teachings were not true, because they most definitely were true. He was totally, speaking the truth and trying to show people the way that we need to be. I mean, he was trying to magnify the law. He never came to do away with the law. He was just he came to magnify the law. And there's more than just the 10 Commandments for the law.
You can call me Joe, Joey, or Joseph. But if you call me, Joe, it doesn't mean, all of a sudden, if I was in that position of being the Lord and Savior, that I'm going to damn you to hell because you didn't get my full name correct as in Joseph.
But yeah, and I understand where he's going with
Jesus himself said, "How can the Son be greater than the Father?" Jesus didn't know the day of judgment, because only the Father knows the day of judgment. And that's all I'm saying is, people have turned the messenger of God into God, and it's not the same. He's not God. He was just the Son of God.
Well, Colin, I want to thank you for your call and bringing this to our attention. It is something that we'll definitely have to look into a little bit more. We're going to have to talk to some of our Jewish friends and get their take on it, because there is a debate about the names. We heard Steve Quayle mention it a couple shows ago, and I want to thank you very much. You have a Merry Christmas, sir, and we will talk with you later.
And thanks for that. Thanks for that information. All right.
Moving on here, Congress at last minute drops requirements to obtain a warrant to monitor your emails. This source from federal government, Fed.gov, the federal government will continue to access Americans' emails without a warrant after the U.S. Senate dropped a key amendment to the legislation now headed to the White House for approval.
What do you think they're building that big building in Utah for?
What about the one in Australia that they already have?
Of course. Folks, all of our emails, all of our communications, all of our personal records are being monitored, and they're being held. It's not in paper files, but in digital files. Go ahead, Joe, and continue with that.
Last month, the Senate Judiciary Committee approved an amendment attached to the Video Privacy Protection Amendment Act, which deals with the publishing users' Netflix information on Facebook pages that would have required federal law enforcement to obtain a warrant before monitoring email or other data stored remotely, i.e. the cloud. The Senate, which was set to approve the video privacy bill along with the email amendment, which would have applied to a different law, the 1986 Electronic Communications Privacy Act.
Right.
But then senators decided, for reasons unknown, to drop the amendment. Currently, the government can collect emails and other cloud data, text messages, and more without a warrant, as long as the content has been stored on a third-party server for 180 days or more. Federal agents need to only demonstrate that they have reasonable grounds to believe the information would be useful in investigation.
They don't even have to prove that anymore.
Meaning, can I see this?
Yeah. See, and that's the thing. Look, we're in such a state right now. Why are they collecting? And I guess we can just put it this way: why are they collecting the information on each and every person? They're collecting medical information. They're collecting political information. They're collecting what you would ordinarily term as census data. Obviously, it would be as if we were going to invade a country, having all of that information about its populace at hand, at the ready, knowing who's armed. And this brings me to another one. Did you see in Westchester County, I believe it was, New York State, where the newspaper went into the, I believe it was the sheriff's office, got
all the gun registration?
All the gun everybody who owned or possessed a concealed weapons permit.
And then released it to the public.
Yeah, on the newspaper's website.
And the bloggers did an excellent thing and released all the personal home and information of the people who released the information on the guns.
You know, but this is an information, and that's I'm
for Janet Reno, first registration. Then what was the second one? Then permits.
Yes.
Then we confiscate your guns.
Exactly.
And this dovetails right in with this article. I have private murders versus government murders. December 14th, murder of 20 children and 6 women at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut has garnered vast media attention and caused countless people with no connection to the victims to grieve for them. This is not a new phenomenon, however. Nearly all mass murder carried out by civilians generate the same type of coverage and response. But why, or but what, of the far more numerous incidents of the government murder of innocents, most of them hardly make the news at all. Fewer still produce widespread outcries of sympathy. One does not need to look any further than 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to observe the contrast. Barack Obama was quick to offer an expression of sympathy for the families of the Newton victims, yet that very day the administration asked the federal court to dismiss a lawsuit over a drone assassination of Anwar al-Awlaki's son, Shamir Khan, and Anwar al-Awlaki that was ordered in 2011. Both the Awlakis were American citizens, and Anwar, the son, was just 16 at the time of his death. This also, on top of his drone war in Yemen and in Pakistan, and the countless number of innocent children that have been killed, the thousands of AKA militants that have been killed, it's okay to bomb a funeral to hit one terrorist target. It's okay to strike first responders after you've already targeted them with one drone strike, the original militants. It's all right to go back and hit the people who were going to rescue those people. But no, this is what the problem is.
Joe, did you know, and folks, did you know that we had Anwar al-Awlaki in custody in 2002? I know that he was invited at the Pentagon for dinner. But think about this. Before that, we had him in custody in 2002 on felony charges. We could have detained him indefinitely.
And no, they wanted to make sure they got him and his son.
Well, he was ordered released by our own State Department, by our own Department of Justice, and he went on, of course, to become allegedly the instructional, operational person behind 9/11. But Anwar al-Awlaki, he was on our radar screens since at least the mid-1990s. He had numerous run-ins with the law going back to his college days. Taxpayers, we paid for his education, which, of course, now he's dust. But he was involved through an associate with the blind sheikh, Omar Abdul Rahman. And, of course, the blind sheikh was involved in the New York City WTC bombing plot in 1993. Now, al-Awlaki, born in 1971, he was born to a Yemeni diplomat who was assigned in the U.S. at the time. Both of his parents were attending a New Mexico State University's graduate students on the American dime. So we were paying for his parents to go to school here too. How screwed up is this? So al-Awlaki received $60,000 in scholarship money, fraudulently from the taxpayers. He lied on his application for the college. In 1990, he lied on his Social Security application. He did all this. From 96 through 2000, al-Awlaki was the imam at the mosque in San Diego where, and he was also arrested twice for soliciting prostitutes. So, I mean, so what you said about having him at the dinner at the Pentagon, no one did a background check on this guy?
They knew what they were doing. He just CIA asset.
And just by the way,
I'm sure bin Laden's been to the Pentagon and the White House himself.
I got to tell you this. al-Awlaki was the subject of a terror finance investigation of the SAR group, which was funded by the Saudis. That's no longer in existence. An official of the SAR group, the prominent donor and a supporter of Barack Hussein Obama, actually was the owner of the mosque where al-Awlaki was the imam in San Diego. So all of this is so convoluted and interconnected. And by the way, this will get your blood boiling. Since we're on the subject of al-Awlaki, the U.S. Census Bureau rented an office from the Dar el-Hijra Mosque from 2008 through 2009, late 2009. Do you know how much that rent was? A month? $23,000 a month for office space. So, yeah, I mean, think about this. And also, this is a little known fact, the U.S. State Department used that mosque in promotional videos to promote America's Muslim communities and sent students from our Foreign Service Institute for sensitivity training there. So how screwed up can this possibly be? And I had done an article a couple of years ago on him, and this is why I remember this. There was one U.S. attorney when we had him, and I remember the FBI agents when they had him in custody at JFK Airport in 2002. He came in from Saudi Arabia, from Riyadh, and he landed. The FBI agents picked him up, and the FBI agents were ready to take him into custody, and all the felony charges, everything I just told you about. But the interim U.S. attorney for Colorado, his name is Gawet, David Gawet, I believe is how you pronounce it. He called up the FBI agents and said, let him go. But guess who's Gawet's boss was? Eric Holder, of course.
I was going to say Clinton.
No. So how I mean, look at this. How convoluted can this be? And, of course, drones killed them, and, perhaps that was meant that way, as dead men tell no tales.
That's true.
Yes, indeed it is. And so this is really screwed up. So, and there's just a lot of things taking place.
Celebrities demand gun control. I don't know if we covered this or not last week. This is something I wanted to cover.
We touched on this, but
celebrities demand gun control on Twitter. Stop defending your right to bear arms. Let me see. Your right to bear arms. You're stupid.
Well, what was it, like 80-some celebrities, or 60 celebrities each? They
I don't know, but let's start petitions to deport them all to a gun-free island where they can sit there, in their, utopian society. Because it surely isn't going to happen from a gun-free America. If you want another Germany, it will happen like that. And that's exactly what these people are calling for. And if they can't understand that, then how can they be smart enough to even have a job as an actor, let alone a stagehand, let alone a light person, let alone fill out a job application, Gaffer? I don't understand it. How can you be so oblivious to history? And you're sitting here and you're calling for the genocide of your own people, and you don't even know it.
I agree. We're heading for a full-blown tyrannical government as we speak. And it's being paved, the way is being paved by the actors, by the media, by obviously by the elected officials, and by many people within the communities, your neighbors, your friends, perhaps your family members, are actually paving the way for a full-blown tyranny of our country. And I'm not sure, folks, if we can stop this.
And for the celebrities to say, I'll control guns and do this and do that, why don't they ever say, ask God? Why don't they ever say, ask your Lord and Savior? They never put anybody in the right direction. They always want to argue a point.
That's a great point.
If you want to get a gun, ask God about it, what He thinks. If you don't want to, ask the Lord what He thinks. If you want to get survival food, ask Him what He thinks. Take it to the Lord.
Put your trust
Don't take it to celebrities or Lady Gaga or some NFL star or whoever, because none of them count in the end. None of them.
No, they don't. Folks, we're up against the top of the hour. You're listening to the Christmas edition of the Hagmann Report. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, Joe Hagmann, and we are working this Christmas, going over the headlines, watching things. There are a few things that are flying under the radar, and you need to know about. Our last hour coming up. We're right back after these short messages. Stay with us. Thanks for your time, spending it with us on Christmas.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
If you're stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of this Christmas Day edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. You know, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We forgot to tell you during the last hour. In fact, Joe just reminded me he had to leave at the end of this last hour to take care of some personal business at this late hour. So I am going to be handling the show solo from here. He wanted to make sure I extended his apologies to you for that because we failed to mention that during the second hour. Before we get to the phones, I do want to touch on something here. You know, we are headed, America is headed for full-blown tyranny, and I've got to tell you right now, the institutionalizing indefinite detention has basically taken place. The NDAA 2013 with the indefinite detention did pass last week. But since taking office, Obama authorized numerous measures, police state measures. And it's interesting because they follow the earlier measures taken under George Bush. We are going to full-blown tyranny. It's already just a hair away. That could arrive at any time in full force. And you know, the sad thing about this is it's been wrapped up in this patriotic flag, the flag of patriotism. But we don't realize, the majority of people don't realize how seriously their rights, our rights, have been compromised. We have, in this country, political prisoners. We do, whether it be through the tax system or even through the law or the laws of the Patriot Act situation following 9/11. We've got political prisoners here in this country. But you know, on March 7th, 2011, Obama's Executive Order 13567. That was the NDAA. Well, I'm sorry, that authorized indefinite detention in military commission trials, kind of dovetailing the NDAA. by executing or by authorizing that executive order, he violated our Fifth Amendment. Of course, the Fifth Amendment being no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So due process is a thing of the past. And Bush had originally authorized military commissions. Essentially, they're lawless. By any standard, they're lawless. They're anti-constitutional. They deny international law protections, and they deny the protections of our Constitution. They let presidents convene Star Chamber type situations. So this is absolutely what we're facing here is incredible. I just cannot begin to tell you how close we are. The mainstream media, they won't address the fact that the NDAA was passed last week, or the bill for indefinite military detention of U.S. citizens on American soil was passed last week, last Friday. They don't want to talk about the fact that earth changes are taking place. Isn't it something that biblically we are being told through the Bible about earth changes and about how they will come to be at the end of days? And now it's like new eruptions are being reported every couple of days. We're not supposed to learn about genetically engineered food, genetically engineered seeds, these unintended consequences of super weeds. I don't know whether you've heard about this, but they're difficult for farmers to kill. And it sounds almost humorous, but what they're doing is they're choking out crops. And that's a result, unintended consequence, a result of the genetically modified organisms. The financial situation, it's out of control. And if you've heard Gerald Celente lately, he's calling for a financial disaster within 6 months. And yet you hear in the news, whether it be CNBC, MSNBC, whatever news station, Bloomberg News even, calling the economy, well, we're in a slight recovery. It's not really as strong as we had hoped for, but yet it's a recovery. That's how they're describing it. Did you know, folks, that nearly 400 TSA employees have been fired for stealing from travelers over the last 8.5 years? You don't hear about things like that. That's something that in the TSA, they're expanding their operations. And, of course, their background checks are insufficient in allowing people with criminal record histories to become TSA agents. Folks, they're not commissioned law enforcement officers. According to my DHS source, they will be commissioned in an effort to help quell the uprising that's going to take place when the dollar collapses. But, again, everything is fine according to the media. The major corporations, by the way, they're taking their money out of the United States, a lot of money, and they're putting them in offshore banking havens to avoid taxes. Now, you might say, well, this has been going on forever, but not at the rate that is happening today. The media, by the way, is also shied away from talking about how our own government is helping to give illegal immigrants aid and assistance to come into our country and apply for welfare. If you go on the government websites, did you know that there are different languages on the .gov websites for illegal immigrants? Even if you're in this country illegally, they tell you how to apply for assistance when you're in this country. The U.S. economy, since we have talked about this, we're losing millions of jobs, but we're losing them to nations where that the workers get paid $1 an hour, 50 cents an hour. How can people justify the exodus of our corporations, of our businesses, of our industries, and call everything normal? They can't. The hunger and poverty in the United States is exploding. And again, we're being told everything is fine, that we're in a recovery phase. There's hunger. I spoke with the manager of a soup kitchen. It's not really, it's a place where, well, it's a soup kitchen by definition. And he was telling me this past week that he served more meals to people last week than the entire month of November. That's a scary thought. And he also said, too, that the numbers had been climbing consistently over the past several weeks. Now, I don't know what causes that. He wasn't sure what the cause of that was. But if it's happening here in our area, it's got to be happening in other areas as well. But no one's talking about this. Our biggest oil supplier, too, in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, we're relying on them for our oil imports. What are they doing with the money that we pay them for the product? They're exporting their brand of religion. And by the way, this is something I didn't include in my article when I talked to my DHS insider individual, and this is something I feel confident in telling you. There is a move. Now, I'm not sure if I would call this something official, but there is a move to elevate Islam and any type of criticism of Islam into hate speech. You knew about that. But at the same time, he said, there's also a move to ban everything within the federal departments now, any type of Judeo-Christian references. So there's a two-pronged thing going on here. And you might think, well, wait, I've heard this before. No, this is something different. This is something a little bit deeper now. This is something now where they're actually taking the manuals, the training manuals, and they are changing the wording. They are eliminating certain things that could be deemed offensive to Muslims. We heard about that before, but they're also expunging anything to do with Judeo-Christian principles. And by the way, there is also a move, as I was told, where federal employees do not wear any type of crucifixes, crosses. You're going to be hearing about that in the near future, because that, of course, makes Muslims who work for the federal authorities uncomfortable. Now think about that. That's Saudi Arabia right there. So these are some of the things. You want to talk about going to tyranny? This is where we're headed. And the economy alone should be worrisome by itself. The foreign situation with Syria, with Libya, should be worrisome alone. The political will of our elected officials, especially the so-called Tea Party Republicans, as represented by John Bonnier, with respect to the fiscal cliff, that's eroding, and it's eroding quickly. So we are faced with a multiple front storm system here in this country. And I think that my source is accurate, because it's matching with what other people have been saying, that by March, April, things will get to the point where there will be a collapse of some kind. Now, the one thing I want to point out when I was attempting to really get into the meat of things, how is this going to look? What exactly is going to happen? Is everyone going to be affected equally? Well, with respect to the dollar, yes. But things will be much worse in the cities. This is something, of course, you can extrapolate and figure out on your own. Obviously, if you live in an urban area like Los Angeles, if you're listening to this in Seattle or Washington or New York City, obviously you're going to have it worse than someone living in the middle of Nebraska, in the open lands of Nebraska. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to affect everyone equally in terms of the dollar, of the economic power. So I would urge, if you have the wherewithal, and I'm not saying this lightly. I'm saying that, and I would say as well, take it to prayer. But if you have the ability to get out of, we'll say, an urban situation, I would suspect that now would be a good time to do so. Because when everything does collapse, and it will collapse, it has to collapse, it may not, to describe it is a little cumbersome. But when that does happen, you have to protect yourself if you can. And if not, then you can make provisions to be safe, shelter in place, if you will. So these are some of the things to think about. But going back to the beginning of the show, and Joe and I were talking about this, we are attempting, and we're working very hard at this, and we'll let you know the particulars as we get them done. And we're capitalizing on the downtime during Christmas and New Year's, or during this period when a lot of people are not as busy as they are normally during the year. We're capitalizing on this time in an effort to get people together, and other talk show hosts, and making a kind of a network of sources. So if one goes down, another is still up, or if everybody goes down, we can direct you to certain places. At least be proactive in that regard. That's what we're working toward. And I just want to say that we're doing our best there. Let's go back to the phones. Let's take Dave in Long Island. Dave, Merry Christmas, my friend.
Hello?
Yeah, Dave.
Hello?
You're up. Dave.
Merry Christmas, Doug, and everybody else. Whenever Jesus was born, I just give him praise for coming. I ate too much chocolate today, so I guess I'm going to take it in that way.
Well, you know what? Chocolate's always good, especially, it's a comfort food. But what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, real quick. I don't want to take up too much of your time here. Just want to say something. I wrote down something. I have a little micro cassette digital recorder that I love. Yeah. I have Rick Wiles on it doing the something that he said, that guy that does the sometimes comes on, Rick Wiles, does scripture reading. I have a couple of his things on there. I think it's a great thing. Yeah, the Bible verses.
I'm trying to think of who you're talking about, or the name of the individual.
Yeah, well, I think everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing. I think people might. I think everybody should have something like that. So when you get into some kind of situation, you get your batteries in there. It's a great little, digital thing that you could just play, give you courage. I know I listened to Rick Wiles doing the, the St. Patrick's Cross of Christ or something like that, with Christ beside me, Christ before me. And it's about 2.5 minutes. I just love it. So when I'm in my place and stuff is going on, I just play that. And I love it. Love it. But I just want to bring this point up here now. You people out there about the Chinese, you disarmed us, guys. Whoa. You people out in law enforcement and military, if you love this country and you like your family and you want to enjoy baseball and you want to continue seeing football, yo, guys, and this is going to get bad. You guys really have a hard decision whose side you're going to be on. You know, you could lose your pension, yeah, you could lose your money and everything like that, but man, if it goes the way it probably will, you ain't going to be enjoying that pension or your money, baby, because if you take away our weapons, brothers, the Chinese are sitting there, man, with their forks, the Russians too. They will run this country over. Take the pretty women, kill the ugly women or the less attractive ones, kill all the guys, torture us. You guys will be riddled through. You guys can't defend against the massive. They got 200,000 in their military. 200,000, I believe, Doug, if I'm right. 200 million. 200 million in their. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, am I hearing you say that it's your belief that if and when they disarm the public, our government disarms the public, confiscates weapons, that's an invitation for the Russian and Chinese to come in here and invade us?
I definitely believe so. Yeah, I believe so. I believe so.
That kind of goes with what Augusto Perez had said about the Chinese and Russian invasion.
Yeah, you know, real funny. I was at the gun range about months ago, and I didn't bring this up, but I was out there, and I started talking to this guy. He didn't have any alcohol breath. I didn't smell any stuff on him or anything. He looked like he was straight. We were just talking. I mentioned about that the Russian submarine down there, and he evidently said that he was out fishing way out, because on Long Island you got to go way out to get fish. Way out into, I think, the canyons or something like that, maybe even past that. And he said he's seen a Russian submarine come up. Then he said he's seen some kind of a small craft, U.S. small craft, come over to it, guns, you know, drawn and all this that. But there was no confrontation, nothing like that. They were probably just asking what they were doing or whatever like that. But he definitely seen the Russian, you know, lingo on the side of the submarine and everything, and I do believe him.
Yeah, actually, this happens. This has been documented by commercial fishermen who have bore witness to this on both shores, and as well as the Gulf of Mexico, and people still don't get it. They still deny that it happened. So, I mean, how many? You know, it's crazy.
This is like a prize. It's like a prize. This is like a freaking prize to these people. I mean, look at the oil reserve and the coal and the energy, the gas reserves, the farming land that this country got. China, Russia, they would love to take this country. You know, I feel sorry for the military and law enforcement, because they do have a hard decision to make what they're going to do. And I wouldn't want to be in that predicament, but I know the side that I would choose, definitely. I'd like to also say something. Here's a little something about the Chinese. This is something going back with the pro-life stuff. We have attempted to bring to your attention the uncivilized use of fetal tissue throughout the world, and shamefully right here in the U.S. All right. The Michael Fund exposed the unethical practices of the doctors connected with the National Institutes of Health and March of Times. The end justifies researcher. Their excuse is that the bodies of aborted babies would otherwise go to waste, and they are already dead.
Exactly.
Discussed a practice of using fetal brain cells as means of regenerating. All right, no, I'm gonna skip that. But now we reveal to you a practice sanctioned in China, a country which has received most favored nation status from President Clinton. This goes back to Clinton, I guess. That we would call cannibalism. It has been reported that in China you can buy fetuses as a health food. Fetuses taken from young women are said to be the best. Soup is the preferred meal they are used for. Consuming fetuses is purported to be good for the kidneys and skin. Under the one-child policy in China, God only knows what is yet in store for those most innocent of his creations. Senator Jesse Helms and Congressional Frank Wolf have called for hearings and investigations on this subject. That's something. And I just want to say this real quick. Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy winner's mother, rejected her doctor's advice to abort him. I don't know if you know this, Doug. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that, no.
Yeah.
Let me just interject one thing here, Dave,
yes,
on the Chinese, the fetal tissue being used in food in Chinese food, soups and what have you. As grotesque as that sounds, and it does sound grotesque, there was an email that was circulated along with some really disturbing images back, I don't know, probably a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. That was debunked. However, there is tissue that is being harvested from aborted babies in China. And I did link to this news source, reputable news source, that was saying that they were using some fetal tissue cells from the aborted fetuses for certain. I'm trying to remember now. It was had something to do with
food.
No, not food, but it was for medicinal purposes. But it was not. It was actually a regrowth, a tissue regrowth. I'm searching for the word. Nonetheless, I want to say this. When I linked to that website, I was warned by Google that I would be delisted from their news and blog sites, not because it was untrue, because it was very true, but because it was graphic. So in other words, and I believe the link was to a Reuters article or something to that effect. It was like a Reuters or on par with that. But I just want to warn people, you're going to find where like an agency like Snopes will discount what you are saying, but there is still truth to what you're saying, Dave. It's just not completely true. They're not making soup out of fetuses, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you, but they are using tissue. Okay, so
all right. I wanted real quick. I'd like to say continue with that about Tim Tebow. Heisman rejected her doctor's advice to abort him. Tim's parents, Bob and Pam Tebow, moved to the Philippines in 1985 to conduct a Christian missionary outreach. While pregnant with Tim, Pam contacted amoebic dysentery through contaminated drinking water. She was advised to have an abortion due to the danger to the baby from the drugs needed to cure it. She refused, and Tim, a healthy baby, was born in 1987. So there's the power of God when you trust in Him and you don't take your kid. Many children have lived through these things where doctors say, don't do it. God supernaturally says, no, I'm not going to go along with that doctor, and this kid is going to be okay. So that's the power of Almighty God, right?
How great is that? That is nice to hear on Christmas Day that Tim Tebow is.
Isn't it? And I just wanted to also, if I can bring this for other people out there, I found a thing about Cops for Christ, and it comes from the island here. It goes back to 1992. International Cops for Christ, Farmingdale, New York. And it goes back, it's God's final warning to America. And it talks about different things that happens from abortion and homosexuality. Now, I just wanted to go here. June 28th, 1992, Gay Pride Day followed by Supreme Court decision not to overturn Roe versus Wade. Fourth greatest earthquake. That was the most powerful in the world in 1992. 10 of the most severe earthquakes in the world in 92 were located in California. This earthquake was the most powerful in the world in 1992. Gay Pride Day, followed by Supreme Court decision not to overturn Roe versus Wade. 10/17/89, 2 days after huge pro-abortion march in San Francisco, fifth greatest earthquake. Now, I just wanted to read this real quick. On October 19th, 1987, the stock market dropped over 500 points for the greatest crash in history. The effect of this crash was felt well into the 1990s. The U.S. economy was increasing at 6% and never mind this. The newspapers reported the crowd carrying signs stating, "Thank God I'm gay." Oh, that's like some guy in the chat room before, right? Others were saying, "I'm gay and I'm proud." God answered this march with the greatest stock market crash in U.S. history. Just 8 days later, the homosexuals marched in the nation's capital, and God then shook the entire country. On October 17th, 89, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake, the fifth most powerful this country to hit America, struck near San Francisco. This quake struck during a baseball World Series game, I can't remember that one, and was broadcast live to the nation. Millions watched as the earthquake shook San Francisco. Although the earthquake was extremely strong, miraculously, very few people died. Just 2 days before this earthquake, on October 15th, 1989, a huge pro-abortion rally took place in San Francisco. The newspapers reported the crowd reached up to 50,000. The center of the rally was City Hall, where many pro-abortion politicians addressed the crowd. 2 days later, the awesome earthquake struck and shook the city to its foundation. Ironically, the newspapers reported that City Hall, which was the center of the pro-abortion rally, was shaken so terribly that people fled the building screaming in terror. This was a powerful warning that the killing of children in the womb has America on a collision course with God. So that's a little encouragement.
Yeah. It goes right along with the book The Harbinger by Jonathan Cahn. I mean, measure for measure. You know, Dave, look, we're playing around in areas. We're taking God away, taking God out of our lives, and we are suffering the consequences. People will argue.
It's just a note for the people out there. I know it's really hard, man, and we're all like bugging out, and we're seeing a lot of stuff going on. But you gotta you gotta say God's on our side. God deals with evil in His own time.
He does,
and he's going to deal with the evil that's happening. And just my last point, did you see Cuomo's eyes? I mean, look at this guy. Now, I talked about all these guys that shot all these people. I never knew what Cuomo looked like, the governor of New York. Did you see?
You live in New York. Shame on you. You live in New York.
The first time I seen him was on Hurricane Sandy doing the thing. That's the first time I seen him. And I didn't even know it was him until they were saying it. And I said, maybe that's him. Then I seen. Did you notice how he looked? I mean, to me, when I first seen him, he looked like a freaking nut job. I felt like saying, give this guy a drug test. Because he looked weird. Like he was on something.
Look, you know, the eyes are the window to the soul, and certainly sometimes after studying and reading and being on the computer for 14, 18 hours, my eyes are, you might look at me and say, "Oh, like, what's wrong with you?" But no, I understand. It's
you're not
totally
a liberal
different.
Democrat, and you're not pro-abortion, though, either, Doug.
No, but you can tell, the eyes being the window of the soul, you can tell, a lot from that. Dave, I'm going to move on. God bless you, my friend. Merry Christmas.
God bless you, Doug. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you, man. All right, we're going to move on to area code 305. Area code 305. You are on with Doug Hagmann on the Hagmann Report.
I think I'm supposed to be on hold.
Oh, you're supposed to be on hold?
Yeah, I was already on, and I thought you put me over to the hold.
I did. See, I'm lost without Joe. All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Going back on hold. All right. Boy, I'm not even sure here what I'm doing with the switchboard. Let me go to 503. Are you supposed to be on hold, or you want to talk? Area code 5.
I wanted to talk. This is Roy.
How you doing, sir?
I'm
What's
good.
on your mind?
Anyway, are you doing a show on Monday night, New Year's Eve, or are you going to have a repeat for that?
I haven't talked to Joe about this. As far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to do a live show on New Year's Eve for a couple of reasons. Why are you asking, if I might ask?
Well, I just wanted to plug something. Our church out here on the West Coast is going to have a prophecy update, and you can watch it online at atheycreek.com or Athey Creek Fellowship. It starts at 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
So
and it should be really good. They do one every year on New Year's Eve. So for all your listeners, it should be really good.
So 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time, which would be midnight Eastern
East
Time,
Coast.
which is after our show. And what is the spell the website, please?
It's Athey Creek, which is ATHEY Creek Fellowship, and just search that, and then you can pull it up, and then just hit the live button, and it'll go for 2 hours from 9 o'clock until 11.
Okay, now you said this is going to be a prophecy update?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Oh, well, that's all right. Are you going to have speakers, any speakers, or is it going to be just internal pastoral people that are going to talk?
It'll just be our pastor doing it.
Okay.
And he's really good at Bible prophecy, so it would be something to watch. It should have a lot of good information.
You know what? Do me a favor, if you don't mind. Send me an email with that information and my email. If you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, that's HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on my name, and just send me an email about it. And I can promote it, make it available to our listeners as well. If we do a live show, as I believe we will do, we'll share that as well, because some people might be very interested in seeing that. So we'll promote it.
Be great.
You know, we all have to stick together in these times. You know, the prophecy update would be very topical for what we're talking about.
One topic you guys ought to work on is the Jezebel spirit. Have you heard anything about that before?
Yes, I have. What are your comments on that?
Well, I had to live with it for 18 years, and I knew there was something wrong, and family members kept saying, oh, it's just the way she is, but it's very evil, it's demonic, and, you know, just like what Doc was saying the other day about demons and everything, you know, they're very sly, and they manipulate and lie, and it's just a very ugly thing, and still I have trouble trying to explain to people what it's all about, but there's a lot of good information out there on the internet.
Yeah, there is, as a matter of fact, and people, you know, they might say, well, what the heck is that? Now, I mean, look, there's a number of different definitions and ideas of what constitutes the Jezebel spirit, but, I mean, you can go from odd sexual preferences within a marriage to false doctrine to whatever. Now it's not mentioned directly in the Bible. I mean, it's referenced, but not directly referenced as the Jezebel spirit. But it
was. They look at it as what Queen Jezebel did, and how evil she was, and that's why they put that name to it.
Yeah, she led Israel into Baal worship. I think it's in Kings, I believe, the Book of Kings. You can read about that. But yeah, wow. Well, okay. Well, yeah, it's a difficult thing to overcome if you are experiencing it personally. And believe me, more and more people today are finding a rift in their own homes, in their own families, in their own cliques, if you will, that you know, you're not alone, and if you lived with it that long, God bless you, man. I'll tell you, I don't know how you would do that, but you must have a solid constitution.
Yeah,
but,
she was like a champion chess player. She was always 8 moves ahead of everybody else, and she just lies and manipulates and deceives, and it's just a sad thing, you know, especially when she goes to church and sings in the choir, and it's just ugly.
Yeah, and for those people, again, unfamiliar with that whole concept. In fact, Steve and I had a conversation about this last week about just about that. We weren't talking specifically about the Jezebel spirit, but about that disconnect among family members, especially the closer we get to the event horizon, whether it be some financial problem or something else. There's a disconnect. There's this, usually one or the other person within the marriage will gravitate toward this normalcy bias and grab onto it for dear life, you know. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you've got to work with that, and it requires a lot of patience and a lot of prayer. So, but thank you for mentioning that. But I will look for your email. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll send that to you.
I appreciate that. I'll look for your email on that, because that's interesting to me. Always interested in biblical prophecy, and the fact that you're involved in that certainly sounds like a very interesting, especially if it's on YouTube as well. All right, my
yeah,
friend.
I went to.
All
right. Thank you very much, Doug.
All right, my friend. Goodbye.
Talk to you again. Bye.
All right, sir. You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's one thing I do want to mention here, even at Christmas, and this is something that, once again, that Steve and I talked about, and others we've talked about, the rift within our families, and what do you do about that? Well, one of the things that we had talked about was things will, we believe, have a tendency to even out. As things get worse, the people who are adhering to the normalcy bias, the people that you're living with or you're talking to, whether it be your neighbors or your friends or your family, who are still saying everything's fine or not wanting to discuss it because it's such a downer. I mean, it really is. It's difficult to live in this arena, this venue, this stadium, and mental stadium, if you will. It's very difficult to live here and to do the research and to try to connect the dots. And we can become, people like us, like me, could become very difficult to live with if we don't add balance to our lives. But on the flip side of that, the people who are refusing to take a look at what's taking place, well, they're going to have a more difficult time when things begin to happen that affects them directly. Their ability to buy anything using a debit card because the debit cards don't work. But they're going to be looking at you at that point for direction. And that's when you're going to have to take up and be the leader that you are and guide them through spiritually, mentally, perhaps physically. So there's going to be a lot of responsibility on you. And that's one thing that I really want to drive home, because things are going to get bad. And I'm not sounding, look, I'm not selling anything. We're not selling anything. We're not making money off of, sounding the trumpets here. We're just trying to warn people of what's coming and trying to connect the dots. All we're trying to do is stay a few steps ahead of what's coming so we can keep you a few steps ahead of what's coming. That's the only thing we're trying to do. And I think that when things do happen, that we all, when this does come to pass, when the financial problems happen and the war overseas goes hot and you start seeing bombs fly, and you're going to start to see a very severe psychological trauma to the people that are the most resistant to you right now. So that said, you need to be strong right now. You need to have patience and understand that they're not on the same page as you are. And the other thing, too, I want to warn, I just want to sound the warning bell, too. The way that things are going to be playing out, and especially with this gun issue, people are saying, well, this is going to be grandfathered in. The possession is going to be grandfathered in. From everything I've been hearing, not this time. Not this time. And if it's not grandfathered in, which means that you're going to have to give up your weapons, there will be occasions when you will have neighbors and family members and friends and people you least expect point their fingers at you for keeping a gun. It can be avoided if you haven't told anyone you've got what you've got. Don't spread it. I mean, what you've got is your business. Keep it that way. Obviously, if you share with your wife and people live in your house, it's very difficult to keep that a secret. And I'm not advising breaking laws or anything like that. I'm just telling you to survive in a survival mode. And there comes a time as well when, and I believe it's when, not if, when it becomes illegal. For example, if you own a firearm that they deem illegal and it needs to be confiscated according to their law, you're going to have to make a conscious decision. And I think at that point in time, now Joe would say, well, you have to take it to prayer. And I agree, you do. But at that point in time, you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to risk being a lawbreaker and keep a weapon or keep a magazine or keep whatever? Or are you going to comply? I think what you need to do, what everyone needs to do, is understand the consequences of compliance. That concerns me the most. Because once you've got that acquiescence and that compliance, what are your options? What options do you have left? What options, what barriers do you have between yourself and complete and total enslavement? None. Except God. And obviously, you've got to have faith in God. You've got to have faith, working faith, tremendous faith. But I also think that you've got to use your head, that we all have to use our heads, because it's going to get very bad. It's going to get very rough. What I would start doing right now, folks, if you get nothing else out of tonight as well, start tomorrow. Start this week. Start putting food away. Look, maybe you don't have to get freeze-dried food, although that would be the best because of the weight and the ability to carry it if you need to. Start putting food away. Food that you'll eat. Buy an extra gas can. Where I shop, a gas can, a $5 gas can, is $18. It's a lot of money for an empty gas can. So buy the empty gas can this week, and next week buy the gas to go in it. But prepare. Make sure you've got the Bible as well. Make sure you've got, just make a list. Priorities. And if you are able to, talk with your spouse. Talk with your spouse if you can. Make a list of priorities, of things that you need. And plan, try to get a couple of days' supplies together. And then once you have that down, go for a week and continue that way. The other thing, too, keep as much money out of the bank as you can. Cash on hand. I highly recommend that. If you don't have a lot of cash, you don't have to worry about that. I understand that. But at least you're not going to be battling with ATMs if you've got $10, $20, $30 in your pocket. I'm talking about the little things you can do. Because even the littlest of things will help you. And something that we don't talk about much, but put aside, if you've got children especially, put aside board games, put aside cards, decks of cards, put aside things that you would not normally think about. Everyone's into video games. There may be a time when obviously you might not be able to play video games. And life is not going to end as you know it. So there are going to be times you're going to need practical things to entertain the children. Make sure you've got clothes, winter clothes, boots, coats, things to keep warm. These are the little things you can do now. We still have time. There's still a little window of time. If possible, talk to neighbors about preparations. If you feel comfortable, and but you say, but wait, you just contradicted yourself. Now, I'm saying if you know the people and you're comfortable with doing it, and other people are as concerned as you are, if they're on the same page as you are, then you can talk to them. What they don't have, you might. And what you don't have, they might. So make preparations now. Start making them now. Now is the time. And we will try to help whoever we can. If you've got questions, email them to us. We will try to answer everyone's email. I don't care if you're listening to this in Canada or in South America or in this country. It doesn't matter. The mindset, the procedure, it's the same. It's the same. Because, look, I could go on with respect to the news. None of it's good. We all know that. Look at the gun sales that had taken place after this mass shooting. How can people not say that things are out of whack? We had 20-some people killed at an elementary school in gun sales. Where I reside. In fact, I don't believe anywhere in the United States you can buy an AR-15, for example, or the magazines. According to the information I have, they're on 6 weeks back order. What does that say? Shouldn't that be ringing alarm bells? Even in the most skeptical of person, shouldn't that alone be ringing alarm bells? It was a horrific incident at Sandy Hook. But disarming the population, this is what they want to do, is disarm the population. Look, in 1911, Turkey disarmed its citizens. And as a result, over a 2-year period, 1.5 million Armenians were killed, were murdered in mass genocide. And we can go through the years, and I think Joe did at one point. In Russia, 1929. For a 25-year period, 20 million people, 20 million Russians were murdered. Can you see where this is going? Every population whose citizens was disarmed has experienced, without exception, genocide. Right up into the latest part of the last century. And combine that with this indefinite detention of U.S. citizens on American soil. Can we see where this is going? Combine that with all of the economic factors, all of the earth changes that we're seeing. Can we see where this is going? I think we can. And what we need to do, while understanding that this is taking place, while we're watching these things take place, be as proactive as possible. As I mentioned earlier, we need to be proactive. We need to understand that the mainstream media is not going to tell us what's going on. They don't really want us to know. They don't want to talk about the various issues that we're talking about. But we can do this. Now, we're waking a lot of people up, but that also has a different effect. And I like Alex Jones talking about, there's an awakening taking place all across the globe, because what we're experiencing is global tyranny, certainly tyranny here in our country. And I like it when he says, people are waking up to this tyranny. But the backside of that, the flip side to that, by waking up, we also have a bigger problem. And that's the problem of the clampdown, because more people are waking up, the harder the clampdown will be by the government, by the tyrannical government. Which is the reason, too, I wanted to write the Christmas article. It kind of pained me to write the Christmas article at HomelandSecurityUS.com about Jesus' birthday. And you might think, well, again, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it shows that what we're experiencing is truly a demonic movement, a demonic I mean, it's just not only tyranny in a political sense. It's spiritual tyranny. It's spiritual warfare. And if nothing else, it validates what people like Steve Quayle are saying, and Augusto Perez and Rick Wiles, and you name the people, and at Standeo, and of course Doc Marquis when he was talking about the people behind this. There's validation there. So while there's an awakening taking place, there's also going to be the bigger clampdown. Yes, people are waking up, and that's a good thing. Evil is being exposed for what it is. There will be a day of reckoning, a month, a year, of a period of reckoning. We're headed for that, and it's going to be very unpleasant. But here's your job. Your job is to keep it together in your family, in your life. You have to keep it together, because we have to get through this together, because we're not talking about something that's going to start and finish in a matter of a day. We're talking about battles. We have to get through one battle and make it to the next. That's what God wants us to do, I believe. That's what a good friend of mine says, we have to play our zones. We have to play our positions. Some people play the point. Some people play the guard or whatever. But we have to play our positions as best we can. We have to play our... And if we do that, see, that's your job. That's our job individually. We've got to do that for us and for our families. And then when we get to the other side, after we get to the battle, after the battle is over, we have to prepare for the next. Our families, our legacies with God, our families, our children, they depend upon us. Because when they ask and say, Mom, Dad, what did you do? Dad or Mom, what did you do during this time? You can look and say, I fought as best I could in the best way I knew how to make it to the other side. And that, I believe in all of us. If you're listening to this program, I believe you can do it, and you can make it to the other side, and we can do it together. I really do. Folks, I had a great time tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. We're at the end of the program. And I just want to say thank you for putting up with me solo the final hour. I hope I didn't let you down, and I hope you can go away tonight, finish Christmas, and spend some quality time with the family or in prayer. I just want to say God bless every one of you, and thank you so much for tuning in. Until tomorrow night, stay safe.